All right, and we are live. All right. Hi everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We might just give maybe a minute or two to have people joining, have people come in. But excited, very, very excited to be hosting this particular live webinar with Waturi Wamboye. She will introduce herself. But in the meantime, maybe we can just give maybe just a minute, just about a minute for people to introduce themselves. But very excited, very, very excited to be here with you today, Waturi. So yeah, I guess we can get the ball moving because we also want to respect our time. We want to respect people's time this evening. Yeah. So to begin with, my name is Nicole Kimani. I'm part of the Career Kickstart KE team. Very, very excited to be hosting this live webinar. It's, I think, one that is very crucial, one that essentially speaks to a lot of what is happening currently. Yeah,
Mm,
and as Career Kickstart, we've really evolved as a company, as a business, essentially from supporting young graduates in, improving their personal brand, or essentially, being able to do their CVs properly. We've actually evolved to have, important conversations on basically work and especially making designing career realities for people, helping people design careers that they love. So it's exciting essentially to have us engage in this conversation on, layoffs, because that's a reality. I think layoffs became, a reality just about COVID time. That's when it stopped being a taboo. It's quite interesting how before layoffs used to be one of those hush things, but then after COVID, it became such a big reality. And of course, with the economic times, especially today, a lot of companies are basically laying off a couple of people in their companies. Yeah, so that's one of the conversations we'll be having today. So, how do layoffs impact a person? How can someone prepare for them? If someone has been laid off, what do they need to do? Yeah, that's essentially what we'll be talking about today. But yeah, let us know where you're joining from. The chat box is open. Let us know where you're joining from. We'll be very, very excited to hear from you. All right. And I think with that, we've given maybe 2 minutes people to come in. Yeah, but Waturi, do you want to introduce yourself before we kick it off?
yes, absolutely, Nicole. So good evening, everybody. I'm so happy for those who are on the call today. My name is Waturi Wamboye, and I have had an work experience spanning close to 12 years in HR, specializing mostly in global recruitment and talent leadership. I'm passionate about people, being matched to the right kind of jobs. I'm passionate about, really harnessing potential in people and
Mm.
ensuring that people just love what they do and
Yeah.
then purpose in the work that they carry out. I work at Nova Pioneer, a group of schools both in Kenya and South Africa, and I manage a small but mighty team
Mhm.
across countries. And I'm just really happy to be here and to just share personal experiences because I have, been impacted by redundancy. In fact, that's what
Mhm.
led me to Nova. And so, not all redundancies are bad news.
Yeah.
Some of them
Yeah.
actually become breakthroughs for you.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to be here and we'll share some more.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm also a family person. I'm married to Ernest Wamboye. I have three wonderful children, two girls and a son, and I'm a born again believer. And I'm really happy to just be here with everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Waturi. Fantastic intro. I think there's so much more you didn't even speak about.
Ah,
That you're co-author to a number of books, that you do so many other things on the
so,
side.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, fantastic. Thanks again for making the time to speak with us. I think a short intro from my point of view as well. Yes, I'm part of the Career Kickstart KE team, one of the co-founders, and essentially, one of our hashtags actually is making Eco Kazi a reality, and that is in every sense of the word, from CV revamps, developing your your personal brand, career coaching, just helping young people understand what their career direction would look like. But apart from that, I am also a talent acquisition specialist. I work for an international fintech company. And essentially, my day to day job is a lot of interviews, a lot of trying to match top talent with incredible jobs across the globe. Yeah. And just like Waturi, I have actually also been part of a layoff before. So I think Watri and I, we can possibly even touch about our personal experiences and what that looked like, the emotion, how you're able to go through that and, of course, emerge, victorious and, with better opportunities. Yeah,
Mhm.
so excited, very, very excited that we can start it off. Yeah, but I think actually that would be a good place to start. Are you okay sharing what your layoff story looked like and how you were able to transition into maybe a different space, a different role? Just curious to hear what that looked like for you.
Okay, great. Yeah, sure. So I was impacted. I think my role was impacted. I think I like to specify that because the
Oh,
person themselves are not
yeah,
redundant.
yeah,
The human person is full of genius.
yes,
So it's
mm,
impossible for someone to be completely redundant. It's the role that falls redundant. Yeah. So I
yeah,
think it's to separate the person from the role.
yeah,
So my role, the role that I was, playing at the time at the company,
mhm,
which was a BAT. I worked for BAT.
mhm,
The role was, the roles that had been identified as falling redundant, and so
mm,
that impacted me because I was the job holder of that role,
yeah,
and that was in 2017.
mhm,
And funny enough, it was my year with the highest gains. I did so many great things in that company.
yeah,
We won Employer of the Year awards with FKE. That was one of my biggest
oh,
entries. BT had
mm,
never participated, and I was like, what's the harm in having, you know,
yeah,
and why know about a manufacturing company that's been there for 100 years?
mm,
So I put that company on the map. They won top award and several awards because it's a
mhm,
company that really sets the bar in pace and excellence.
yeah,
And then I also entered the company into top employer Kenya, which they have continued to win many years from then. So it was really at the height of my career.
mm, mhm, mhm,
Then come end of the year,
mhm,
the role, there are changes in the organization,
mhm,
and my role became redundant. So
mm,
in 2017, I was informed of the news,
mhm,
and I think in my story, at the point when they gave me the letter, I had literally finished all the tasks I had. So I was actually like just putting things together, asking people for work. So
uh-huh,
I think it was actually just serendipity, when just things just
wow,
work out for
mm,
you. And
wow,
yeah, so I was laid off, and then
mhm,
I took some time to just, I think, deal with the rejection. I didn't take it as
mhm,
positively as I say now. I think I
mm,
had separated myself from the role. So I felt
yeah,
like
mm,
it was a personal rejection. So
mm,
for I'll declare redundant in November. So November, December, I went on holiday. I
mm,
actually felt employment is a sham. I didn't apply for anything
yeah,
in January. Then
yeah,
February. In February is when I was like, hey, this severance package is running out. I need to start looking for some money. And so
yeah,
I started applying, and as fate would have it, I got into Nova Pioneer. A friend referred the job advert in December. So I
okay,
just applied because I was like, you know what, let me just do it and move on.
mm, mm,
And then I went through the process of recruitment, and it was a managerial position, and I was in
mm,
my 20s. And I said, will they take someone in their 20s to be
no,
a team? But I
yeah,
believe that I had what it takes because I had
yeah,
good training.
mm,
And I joined the company. I joined the company in April
mm,
2018, and I've had different roles in Nova since then. So this is my 6th year this April in the company,
wow,
and I've really enjoyed my time there. Yes, so I started as a consultant and then a full time
mm,
and held various roles. Yeah, so that
yeah,
has been my journey in terms of just a snapshot of what
wow.
happened.
of what happened. Yeah,
About
fantastic.
you, Nicole. How was
Mine was a whirlwind of emotions. I will not lie. My redundancy story happened in 20. Oh my gosh, is it 2021? No, COVID was 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually I was not affected. The company is a very big, amazing company, even up to date in the education sector. Probably seen them in a lot of billboards. Their programs are incredible. A lot of young people within the country, and even I think across Africa, are really benefiting from their programs. The company is called ALX. Really great company. To date, I still have so much respect, so much admiration for the work that they do, because for them, I think young people of Africa are their heartbeat, essentially. So, and I think it was very much ingrained in every single person that this is our mission. So it was still is a very mission driven company, and I really enjoyed working for it. But then there was a restructure happening, and they laid off a number of people. And for me, first time this is ever happening. And again, I love what you said, that you don't, at that point, you don't really separate yourself from the role. It's almost as if you see yourself as you're
Yeah.
being told you're not good enough. This is why we're
Exactly.
letting you go.
Yeah.
And so this happened, it was actually 2021. It happened 2021, early September. And I remember it being such a very difficult period, because at that point, I hadn't detached. I didn't even know detachment was a thing, that you should not
Mm.
like. It's not you. It's your role. And I remember just going through a whirlwind of emotions. And I think the various stages of grief, I literally went through them. I
Mm.
don't even know the stages of grief, like I can name them, but I remember just being so um sad, and feeling like I have failed, feeling like I don't know what is going to happen. I had actually just moved out of my parents' home, was now getting a hang of living by myself. So I'm wondering, do I need to go back home? Do I need to
Yeah.
tell my parents what is going to happen? Yeah, so it was very scary. I went through a season where I was very bitter.
Mm.
No. And then after that, it was a season of wondering, am I even good enough?
Yep.
Have I just been winging it here? And there's nothing
Yeah.
good I have been doing,
Yep.
literally.
Yep.
Yeah. So I went through that, and I like to credit that at the end of the day, because I'm also a believer, at the end of the day, God is in charge of my career, He's in charge of my life, but even my career more so. And
Mm.
He, just the same way He allowed you to go through a season, and then someone connected you to the job posting for Nova, same thing. But for me, it happened in such an interesting way. I literally just Googled talent acquisition jobs, and then one of the jobs that came up is the job where I currently work. And I remember
Nice.
I was applying in such a confused state. I think I remember the first week of the because one of the things we'll talk about is how it's important to even maintain basically a routine of normalcy, because once you've been declared redundant, you no longer have a job, and our jobs fill up our days. So
Yep.
you're not going to the workplace anymore, or you're not working from home anymore. What are you doing? So I remember I didn't even know Waturi, it was bad. I don't even think I showered for like 2 days. I was so, I don't know, I can't say I was depressed, but
Ah!
yeah,
No, it's very possible.
it's such a confusing time, because
Mm.
now you see your rhythm has been affected. So the way you would do things before is not the way you're doing things. And I remember at some point I was thinking, hey, I need to snap out of this, otherwise if I don't, something critical might happen. Anyway, but long story short, I went through the various stages, up until I got to accept. And I think also acceptance for me happened a bit later on, even after I had joined now my new role, just because I was also very scared of putting my new role in jeopardy. Because you see, at that time, I'm still thinking it's me, the person
Yeah. Yeah.
was taken,
Let
that thing was
go.
taken away from me,
Mm.
exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, so I remember even approaching my new role in a very fearful way, not wanting to do anything wrong, just in case I'm also told, listen, even you here, you're going to be declared redundant. So it's been a
Yeah.
whirlwind of of emotions. But I now see that, just as you said, not all redundancies are bad news. Some of them are literally doors, literally open doors
Mm.
to your next
Mm.
opportunity. Because
Yep.
for me, it opened me up to global recruitment. Previously, I'd only recruited for roles across maybe Kenya, maybe a few roles in Africa. But now, literally, I recruit for roles in Turkey, in the Philippines, in Europe, different all over the world. Essentially, I have really grown in the scope of my career, and I think especially now with how layoffs are, it's no longer a taboo thing. I can tell you what, I didn't even tell
Yes.
my parents I was laid off. Them, they just knew she moved jobs, because at that point I, I didn't want questions of, really, why was so and so kept,
Right.
which were not kept.
Exactly.
I didn't want to deal with that, because it was not. I knew it was going to affect how I see myself. And
Mm.
sometimes you make those type of decisions, who to tell, who not to tell. But I
Mm.
think now, almost 2.5 years later, I can openly speak about it. But yeah, it made the whole, I guess it allowed me to see that. And actually now I see people speak about layoffs so openly, even on LinkedIn. And I say, I wish I had that courage. I wish I
Mm.
had that courage to say that I was laid off. And nowadays people are so brave. They say, I was laid off, me and like other, like, let's say 100 bunch people were laid off. If you're looking for people, let's say in tech, they actually like pitch their colleagues or their former colleagues for jobs. And I
Yep.
love that now become, it's almost like
Mm.
it's brought together even a new, it's like
Mm.
a new normal. It's brought together a whole new community of people
Yep.
who've been laid off, and we can support each other to get jobs. But yeah,
Mm.
so that's my
Yeah.
layoff story. I thankfully made out of it a better person. I made out of it, not even bitter anymore. Like I understand that restructures happen sometimes with tough economic times, especially currently. Companies, not they have to manage their costs, and
Yeah.
unfortunately humans are a cost in that, not in the sense of, because the human worth will never change. Human beings are worth
Yes.
so much. We would
Absolutely.
never even be able to quantify what your worth
Mhm.
is as a
Even your
human.
salary can never quantify.
It can never. Your
People
salary.
think, oh, like that's a fraction.
Yeah, oh my
Yeah,
God.
your
We will
worth.
need to talk about that as well. Yeah, your worth
Yeah.
is so much more than your salary and the
Mm,
benefits
mm,
or the company
mm.
that you work for, but the role that you hold, that is what can be gained today, be lost tomorrow.
Yeah,
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 but
yeah.
and I think it's good that we're having this conversation, because it will help more people, especially people, young people, especially their identity, especially in their jobs. I think
Mm,
it's something that, or even older people, because people now, as in, I know baby boomers who would stay in jobs for a very long time. People in companies where you stay for 20 plus years, and then you're laid off. So you can imagine, for me, I was in that company for 2 years, and it affected me as such, as I can imagine someone who's been in a company for 20 years and they're laid off. So there's
that's
that
so
identity.
unknown.
Yeah,
Imagine. Woo.
yeah, it can be difficult, but there is life. There's definitely so much life after layoffs. But yeah, I think that's a good intro. We've introed pretty well. Maybe as we wait for people to send in questions, I'll invite, if you're listening to us, feel free to just send in your questions on layoffs. Could be based on our experiences, based on your experience, or maybe someone that you know, or any top questions you might have. But to begin with, Waturi, maybe we can start the conversation on this note. Um, how can one healthily work through the emotional strain and burden of a redundancy or a pending layoff? What are some of the key, I guess, key encouragements that you can give to someone, or advice or tips, essentially, to work through the strain and burden of a redundancy, both from a point of view of, to work through it emotionally, but also physically, financially? What are some of those things that you can give?
Okay. So I think I can start with the emotional side,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because I think, as you rightfully put it, we cannot take away the fact that um, layoffs are a sense of loss, because
Yeah.
you uh, lost a job.
Mm,
And layoffs, I think, have a different sense to it, because
yeah.
you don't lose it by anything you've really done. You know, when
That's.
you lose a job because you're terminated or you
Mm,
resign, it's a very
mm,
different feeling. Because when you know when your contract is terminated or you're fired, like you're
Yeah.
like, okay, either unfairly or unfairly, like the feeling is different. But when
Yeah.
nothing you've done, but it's a choice that is
Mm.
made, and you didn't have any stake in it, um,
Yeah.
it really feels like it was taken or robbed from you. And
You.
it can feel like that, like how you would lose a person, or uh,
Mm.
to your point about the 5 stages of grief. And I
Mm.
think Kimberly has put a great article about 5 stages
Mm.
of job loss and going through
Yeah.
the mourning. I think
Mm.
emotionally it's important to acknowledge like layoffs feel like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter
Mm.
how long
Mm.
you've been in a company. I think it hurts more when
Mm.
you've been invested in that company. I think you talked about 2 years, Nicole, but you were
Yeah.
tied to the mission of ALX,
I
you know?
was right.
Yeah,
I could.
you are
I
in
could.
love with the purpose, you are on that mission. So the
Yeah.
you are, the
Yeah.
hardest loss,
Mm.
you know?
Mm.
And so I think companies that really have a compelling mission and purpose and you're part of
Yeah.
it, that's
Yeah.
taken from you, like I think the loss is even harder to bear.
Yeah. Mm.
And so I think coming to terms and just checking, like, hey, um, almost like how they say having a meeting with yourself emotionally,
So,
just say,
yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
where am I? Am I
Mm.
at the stage where I'm in denial? Am I
Mm.
angry? Am I
Mm.
depressed? Am I
Mm.
grieving? Am I accepting? Am I bargaining? What stage am I at?
Yeah.
And it's important to go through every stage so that you get
Yeah.
to a point of acceptance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's only at the point of accepting, like, hey, it's the job and not me, I think
Me.
is when you begin to now bounce back.
Yeah.
So feelings of denial and shock,
Mm.
process them. If you have professional help that you can get, please do
Mm.
so. And I think offer counseling
Yes.
companies offer counseling for that.
Mm.
So
Mm.
practitioners and professionals usually tend to offer counseling
Mm.
to their teammates who've been impacted.
Yeah.
And on the same emotional side, some would be like, I don't deal with the tears now. What does it mean for me monetarily?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
people are feeling now I won't have a paycheck to paycheck. What does that mean? And so companies tend to also introduce financial wellness counseling,
Mm.
where you
Mm.
now tell somebody, okay, you have gotten this kind of money through your severance package and pay.
Yeah. Mm.
How do
That's
you
good.
make it stretch?
Mm.
What are your rights? Maybe the company had pension. Because those are the
Yeah.
conversations. When I was given my letter, I was told this is your package.
Mm-hmm.
And BAT had a very solid severance. I don't know if they're still one of the best in East Africa, but they have a very, very solid package. And
Uh-huh.
so I got, so that helped me like relax, and I told you at
Yeah.
my moment we were
Okay.
losing for like 2, 3 months because you could live off that,
Yeah.
um, and just repurpose yourself. So
Mm.
um, financial counseling is very important,
It is. Yeah.
so that you can also not blow away all your severance, know how to
Yeah.
invest in it.
Mm.
Depending on the age when you are laid off. Some people are laid off closer
Yeah.
to retirement, so for them,
Yeah.
bounce back to the job market may be a challenge, or they
Yeah.
may have to find a consultancy. But for those who are laid off in your prime years, which is
Mm.
now becoming a reality,
A
you may
reality.
really need to be more focused on how you're spending your money,
Yeah.
because you're now in the job search and all that. So
Yeah.
that's on the emotional and financial side.
Yeah.
If your company doesn't provide that, I think there are many people you can refer to
Mm-hmm.
who can offer that
Yeah.
online. There are some free resources you can find, articles you can read, but
Mm.
the bare minimum your company should be able to provide for you both counseling and emotional
Yeah.
support,
Yeah.
psychosocial support, and financial support.
Yeah.
Another way I think to deal with that is I think journaling is very important. I
Oh
think it's very
yeah.
therapeutic to journal. Yeah.
Yes.
Journaling your thoughts, processing what you're
Mm.
feeling,
Mm.
because especially the point of anger,
Mm.
yeah, and the bargaining and the confusion and disillusionment. I think
Yeah.
journaling really, really helps you process a lot of those emotions.
Very
I
true.
think that's a very important technique to help
Mm.
with that. And then
Mm.
Um, at the same time, I think it's important also, if possible, maybe to take some days off. I think being
Yes.
laid off and
Mm.
then getting into handover is not easy, and
Yeah.
you can also request for time off to
Yes.
just deal with that. Like as I mentioned, it's a loss. You have to come to
Yeah.
terms with it. So
Yeah.
you need to
Mm.
step out, get out of, maybe go out of town or be with your family. If you have family, meet them, cry. If you have
Mm.
a spouse, meet them, cry. If you are not
Yeah.
married and your family is far, take a staycation if you can. Just go
Mm.
somewhere and
Mm.
just sit in silence,
Yeah.
process the loss. I
Yeah.
think really taking some time off, I think, helps
It's
put things
important.
in perspective.
Yeah.
Because at the
Mm.
end of the day, remember, it's important that you also finish well in the company you're in.
Yeah.
It's such a detriment that you actually do not, because you
Mm.
don't know. Sometimes you may find that you are like, for mine was a very interesting case. I
Mm.
had a letter of redundancy on Friday, and then by
Mm-hmm.
Monday there was an opportunity to remain in the company, but in a different position and role. Uh,
Oh.
yes. So but someone would wonder, why didn't you take it? Mm,
Mm.
the role wasn't aligned to the career
What's
path I wanted to take,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I also felt um, a lot of what I had done, I think,
Mm.
mattered and counted, and I wanted to still stick to talent and HR, which wasn't
Yeah.
available. And so I just said, you know what, maybe this is the end of the road,
Yeah.
and I and let me just proceed with that.
Yeah.
And so that happens. For some people, maybe it works for them and they stay on. For some people, they
Mm.
have to leave. But finishing well and being in the headspace of knowing I'm finishing
Mm.
well, this employer
Mm.
was good to me.
Mm.
I learned a lot,
Yeah.
because I always say, never burn your bridges.
Oh
Never
yes.
burn your bridges. You don't know if they're the same people who will go back for referrals, they're the same people
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
who will be recommending you. Like when you said,
Mm.
Nicole, like
Mm.
especially this redundancy happens a lot in the tech space when we're in a
Mm.
tech world
Mm.
today.
Yeah.
So for them, change is rapid,
Yeah.
rapid, rapid. Some products that customers are not consuming, that whole line, you're redundant,
Mm.
and so they're used to that. So what they do is, it's a lot
Mm.
of recommendations. So
Mm.
obviously, these companies will call your former employer. If you
Mm.
didn't leave well, if you didn't do your handover well,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you'll get a very good recommendation from that
Understood.
company.
Mm.
People, of
Mm.
course, sympathize that you are laid off and it maybe got in the way, but it
Yeah.
says something about your character. Because they say,
Yeah.
if you're not able to just live well, have I think, the stamina and diligence to
Mm.
finish what you had to do,
Yeah.
like what happens if that comes to us, and we have
Yeah.
to, yeah, lay you off. So
Yeah.
I think those are the main strategies I think I can think of that will
Okay.
really help you deal with the matter
Yeah.
emotionally. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I would even add much to that. It speaks to some of the best practices essentially, especially when I like that you even spoke about journaling, because at
Yeah.
that moment you need to process those emotions, because I think a lot of times people go through, and not just layoffs, but I think generally grief, you sometimes you sort of sweep it under the rug, you don't really
Yep.
you don't really address it. So journaling actually really helps to process, because your mind can sometimes be all over, and then you do like a sort of
Mm.
a brain dump, and then you are able to, I guess, outline, this is what my feelings look like, this is what I feel like, and and I think when your brain or your mind is a bit clearer, after a few days, after a few weeks, you can be able to even come up with a course of action. And I know sometimes people, because of that fear, they go to job hunting immediately. They're like, I don't, and
Yeah.
there's a cushion of some sort with severance packages,
Yeah.
but at the same time there's this fear of the unknown,
Yep.
consistently of the unknown web. And of course it's normal, we're human beings, we want to
Mhm.
be certain about things like sources of income and livelihood and etc. Yeah, but a good place to start is process it. If you need to journal, if you need to go speak to someone, cry. I remember I think that same day or the day after, I had two of my very good friends just come and sit with me. Just come and
Mhm.
sit with me and allowed me to be in my emotions, allowed me to cry. I think that same weekend we actually went outdoors, went for a hike, because
Yeah.
really enjoy hiking. So it was a good way to just get my mind off it,
Yeah.
and allow me to now process, okay, what does this mean? What does this look like?
Mm,
With,
mm,
but yeah, I really like even when we talked about financial planning, because
mm.
sometimes severance packages can be very healthy. There is a healthy amount of money that comes.
Yeah,
And if you're not careful, you can, if anything, you what I've learned is minimize, not, you can't even spend it the same way you'd spend it before when you still had a salary. So it needs,
exactly.
yeah, it needs to be in a way that is structured, so you also need some guidance there. And I like that nowadays companies are actually allowing their employees to have, a session maybe with a financial coach, or even someone who can talk through their emotions, because it's not an easy thing to do. And I like
Yeah.
that companies nowadays are doing that. Yeah. I think
Mm,
for me, another tip would be continue with some form of routine. If you used
mm,
if you used to wake up, let's say, at 6, to go to the office, or you're not going to the office anymore, but maintain that normalcy.
some
Engage in some
structure.
form of, yeah,
Mm, mm,
structure. Engage in
mm,
some form of fitness, just so that you also don't just become a couch potato, and you're not showering, you're not brushing your teeth. Yeah, so engage in that form of structure, that can really help. Yeah, all right.
absolutely.
I think we are moving on very well. Hi, Yvonne, very good to have you listening in. Yeah, maybe we can move on to the next one, Waturi. What essentially, when someone has been laid off, how can people strategically tap into their network to either
Mm,
find new opportunities? What is the best way to communicate this situation? Because I
mm,
know, and we can address this from, when you're trying to look for new jobs, even when you get these interviews.
mm,
Because I know, for example, I was too scared to talk about the fact that I was laid off. I didn't even mention it when I was doing my interview. It was not thankfully it was not something that they asked.
mm,
But I know some people might have bigger gaps because of layoff. How do
mm,
people talk about these things during interviews? Yeah, and how, basically, what's the best way to tap into their network and to communicate about it with their network, and even during interviews?
mm. Awesome. So, I think I'm really happy that we are just working in the days that we are working in, because you talked
Yeah.
about just the new normal. So,
Mm,
thankfully, the stigma of layoffs and redundancies, is really not there.
yeah.
Because in the world of work, you find people have been impacted even more
Mm,
than thrice,
yeah.
because of
Mm,
maybe in the industry they are in.
yeah.
Um, mm, I mean, in 2020, you can imagine, I got into, what is this? I got moved into education in Nova, and you know
Yes.
what I did to education. I mean, you are also in the education space. It was one of the hardest hit
Yes. It was very difficult. Yeah.
education and tech,
Mm, yeah.
and I said, how can I be how can I be here again?
Yeah.
I told
Yeah.
myself, Waturi, you're not focused in the kind of companies and sectors you work in. How did you not
Oh
see?
my gosh. Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
because they're like, once bitten, twice shy.
Oh, yeah.
How can I find myself? But of course, I had to, this time for me,
Mm,
the redundancy and restructure
mm,
um, was very interesting. This time, my role was impacted
mm.
in the sense that the role remained, but it was made part time.
Ah,
But my team and some of my other members in the HR space were directly impacted, like their
yeah.
roles no longer existed.
Mm,
And this story is important because you tie to the piece around networking.
okay.
And I
Mm-hmm.
remember during that time, the leaders called us and they said, "Hi,
Mm-hmm.
Waturi, and just to let you know." So now that I had a team, uh,
Mm,
I have some tough news. We are really scaling down
mm,
your team. In
mm,
fact, your team's roles are completely going,
mm,
and yours will be part time. And I was like, "What?" And they said, "In the
mm,
next few weeks, we're gonna call them for the call. I mean, to
mm,
inform them about it. We're gonna call them and inform them about it.
mm,
You want to be part of the call,
mm,
or you'd sit it out?"
mm.
Every part of my being was like, I don't want to be part of it. I've
Yes.
been there before. I
Yes.
don't want to be there. But as
Mm,
I mentioned, I was deeply convicted in my spirit, very convicted
mm,
in heart, you
Mm.
the more so to be there because you've been there before. You know,
Exactly.
and I
Oh.
remember, yeah, and I remember a deep
Mm.
conviction. Leaders are seen at moments such as this. In the
Love.
worst moments, in the lowest
Mm.
moments,
Yeah,
that's when your team need you most.
that's
And I
very true.
and I and every inch of me that
Mm.
is conflict averse, didn't want to be part of it, I
Yeah.
had to step into leadership and said, you know
Mm.
what?
Mm.
This is what leadership is about. I said I love my team, and with my team, it's these
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah.
And so I remember in my very soft voice and quaky voice, I just said, add me to that call.
Yeah,
And we
that
had
was
to
not
do the
easy.
call. It was
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
because I remember listening to the team hearing their fate on their roles,
Mm.
fate of
Oh.
life, just the fate of their roles.
Mm.
And the silence was like death. I remember literally feeling that the
Mm.
silence, the gasp, the
Yeah.
shock.
Oh.
It was the worst. In
Yeah.
fact, when the calls ended, I remember switching off the phone
Mm.
and taking a walk. Like, I'm like, I can't take this.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm already feeling my team,
Mm.
and then there was another call with the wider team in South
Mm.
Africa, and everyone was crying, and it was such a tough call because I was like, oh
Yeah.
my.
Oh no.
And it was a and it was towards the weekend. Of course, you want to strategize towards the weekend, so people
Yes.
need to process. They
Yes,
come.
but mine happened on a Tuesday. Let me tell you, mine happened on a Tuesday. Eh,
What? Hey, now what do you do with the rest of the week?
the rest of the week, no, you're just
People are
confused
go
because
slow, of
mine
course.
happened on a
People are on go
Tuesday. Yeah,
Yeah.
people are on go slow. In fact, mine happened on a Tuesday. It was like at 9:30 a.m. And
Wait,
me, because I didn't see it coming. So even up until 9:29, me I was like, I'm not one of those who are going to be affected.
of
The way,
course.
yeah, you're confident. You enter that call and everyone is gloomy. Everyone, I'm wondering, God, that yeah. So yes, putting it on near the weekend so that people can process. Because mine was on a Tuesday, and I think by Friday we were told finish your handover, everything. In fact, I remember being so slow with my handover. I was even locked out of my email.
But of course, even for them, I can imagine
Mm,
it's hard on both sides.
it's
Don't get
hard.
me wrong. People may think
Exactly.
the player is like, oh, okay, they're gone. No, it's
Yeah.
also very
No.
challenging. It's
Mm,
difficult. And I
yeah.
remember after everything, I called the team.
Mm,
Of course, it was hard because they really loved what they did.
yeah.
And some of them, I told them, there's an opportunity because my team at that time was specialized recruiters.
Yeah.
So of course, because of COVID, we're not hiring any more teachers. So
No.
of course, the
Mm,
roles were. They said, we won't need as many recruiters, but there
yeah.
are some HR roles.
Mm,
So some took it, some didn't, and that was okay.
yeah. It's
And
fine.
they worked on their handover. And I remember when they were leaving, and I was very proud of my team because
Mm,
the team completed their handover really well. And
yeah.
I told them, I'm so proud we finished everything. And they said, you know what, Waturi, do you know what had us finishing well? I'm like, what?
Mm,
Because you're on that call. We said we can't. They said, because you're on that call,
uh-huh.
that made the difference. We felt like we are in the trenches together. Like soldiers
Mm,
in the war, and you feel you're in the
exactly.
trenches, and the
Yeah.
trenches, yeah, the trenches, not the trenches with your general. They felt
Mm,
like we were together in the war zone,
yeah.
and we could not let you down because we know our handover will matter to you because
Yeah.
at least your role is still in the structure for as long as you're there, of course.
Yeah.
And I was very happy about that because
Mm,
I continued building on the work they did today, and both of them are soaring. One of them now is a whole manager. She's
oh,
coaching. The other one is also, both of them are actually managers, but they really grew.
that's
And
amazing.
they're now managing HR and talent in
Mm,
their space. And I'm very proud we connect from time to time.
mm,
So that was really powerful. Now, when you come to networks,
mm,
one of them, because of how well they did, they got an opportunity through networking. I was
mm,
very in giving them referrals. When they say, Waturi, I'm applying for this, I'm here. I'm going to
Mm.
refer you. Just tell me any moment. So networking can come through your a very strong recommendations from your previous employer.
Yeah.
Networking also within that field is important.
Yeah.
So I think don't wait for the redundancy. Start now. I tell people
Yeah.
start your networks now. Start looking
Yeah.
around.
Mm.
Career Kickstart is a great place. Start knowing,
Yeah.
Nicole and the team in
Yeah.
Marianne and the team in Career Kickstart, Kim.
Yeah.
Know them
Mm.
because recruiters know many people. They're always talking to people, so they know so many guys. There are people
Yes.
that you really need to keep close to you because they know a lot of sectors.
Mm.
And um,
Yeah.
so networking with recruiters is important. Networking in
Yeah.
your sector is important.
Yeah.
The easiest way, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If you don't have any digital presence, I mean, it's like complete darkness. It's like the lights are off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
nobody will know how great you are. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there was a boy who was trending, a young man who was trending, not a boy, but a
Mm-hmm.
young man trending
Mm-hmm.
about this accountant, and he was dealing with some recycling stuff. It
Ah.
went viral. I'm telling you, I
Uh-huh.
think by the end of it, I don't know, I think he had over 19 internships. I don't know how many permanent job. The
Wow.
power of just social media. Even
Yeah.
in my own space, one of our leaders was like, "Waturi, is this a legit person? Like, can I find something?" I said, "Don't worry, there are enough like over 10
Yeah.
companies who went after him." And you
Wow.
see the power, and someone just took it. And when I'm in a HR group, senior HR manager,
Mm. Mm.
and they put his story on their timeline. It was
Oh.
tag, tag, tag.
Really?
And it got to the right people.
Yeah.
We got enough offers. So
Yeah.
networking really, really, not just from the job search, even at the redundancy. And now you ask the question about how and when can you talk about it.
Mm.
Having circles like that is one point. If
It's
you don't have
important.
those circles,
Mm.
and you're called for an interview,
Yeah.
there's no shame in saying that you were.
Yeah.
There's no shame in saying I was declared redundant. That's the
Yeah.
space in my CV. Do not hide
Mm.
it. Do not take it
Mm.
out.
Mm.
Can even indicate, I was here at this point, and you can put about the redundancy in the interview. What happened
Mm.
at this point? I was declared redundant
Mm.
after this and this, and that doesn't show you're an unperformer. I think
Yeah.
many people do not see it that way. So of course,
Mm.
probe more, but I
Yeah.
always say it's important to just mention that because it's part of your career journey
It
um,
is. It is.
as well. And so talking about in the interview is important. In terms of
Mm.
LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn has features even for letting people like you on a career break. I think they have features
Yes, I have seen those actually. Yes. Yes.
people
Yes.
need it because it happened to many people during COVID.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
were laid off, or some people chose to take career breaks to focus on
Mm.
family, focus
Yeah.
on their health, focus on
Mm.
motherhood,
Yeah.
fatherhood.
Mm.
So they took career breaks, and it's
Yeah.
not, frowned on
Oh,
today.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think when you find yourself in that rut, don't be ashamed to tell people.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be silent and say, "Hey, let me just lick my wounds in a corner." No,
Yeah. Yeah.
go to places. If
Yeah.
there's a time you need to be aggressive, it's this time.
Mm.
Move forward
Yes.
and tell them, "Hi, I was declared redundant. You find an
Mm.
opportunity, let them know. Hi, talk to anyone, go to that sector.
Mm.
You can put
Mm.
open to work on LinkedIn. I'm open
Yeah.
to work."
That's good.
So there are just many opportunities to share that, and
Mm.
the groups that you're in and communities
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, share.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, share your CV, update your CV, and say, "Hey, I'm available." And you
Mm.
never know who'll pick up your details. And a final thing I will
Mhm.
say, when Nova laid off people, do you
Mhm.
know who were calling back for roles that reopened? Because there are a lot of work and businesses like that. Some roles
Oh,
open, and
yeah.
everybody was like, "Hey, who was on the list? Who
Yeah.
was on the list? Let's call them
Yeah.
back."
Let's call them
Yeah,
back.
yeah. So
Oh,
you never know, you may be back uh,
mm.
rather than later. So
Yeah.
also that door open as well.
That's really good. I like that. I think all those strategies really, really, I think if implemented, can support someone to be more visible. I like that you spoke about not really waiting until it happens.
Mm,
Then you start building your network, because I think sometimes before redundancy happens, there are normally some tell signs. Sometimes when some companies will speak about it and say
yeah,
what is happening, we are going
things
to
don't
class.
change. Yeah. Mm,
Mm. So once you, because you see, you can never be, may I tell you, Waturi, I was 100% sure I was going to be retained. So you can never be 100%
yep.
sure that
Yep.
you will be retained. So start networking now. And now, I think redundancy is, or layoffs are not really a taboo per se. You can talk about it. You don't even have to go scream about it on LinkedIn yet. But start talking to your small networks. You know a
Mm,
recruiter here, you know someone who knows maybe someone, a hiring
mm,
in a particular company. Just start speaking about it. Brush off your CV, because a lot of us, our CVs are living documents when we are job searching. But now
mm,
when you find a job, it's back in your email, or your drive is not really there anymore. Yeah,
mm,
start brushing it off. Your LinkedIn, I like that you spoke about the open to work banner. Yeah,
mm,
bring it up and essentially start trying to see how your capacity can grow from a network point of view, such that
mm,
even when it does happen, you can now deal with the emotion, you can deal with a sort of having a form of normalcy, and then
mm,
after that get back up, essentially. Yeah, but
mm,
I really like those tips, Watri. I think that's really, really good. I'm trying to see if there are any questions. If anyone who is streaming live with us has any questions, please feel free to ask. We are basically ready, open to share. Please drop your questions in the chat. We are happy to answer your questions, because we also don't want it to just be a chat between Waturi and I. We also want to engage you guys and hear what your questions are specifically on redundancy. Maybe you've been affected, maybe you know someone. Yeah, so but in the chat box, please feel free to drop in your questions, or even your comments. If you have any comments, anything to add on your own experiences, that would also be good. Yeah, I guess because we are just about 50 minutes to time, maybe we can now talk a bit about pivoting. When someone goes through a redundancy and then they decide, what, I've been thinking about pivoting my career, this might be the best time to do that. I do know people who, and I think nowadays with the type of skill sets that I've seen people move literally from sales jobs into tech jobs. And I think nowadays, tech jobs, of course, people can learn how to code in a few months, software engineering, UX.
mm,
So there are a lot of, I've seen people pivot in their careers a lot. What type of tips or skills would you have for anyone who would be looking to possibly pivot in their career, especially after a redundancy? What would that look like, essentially? I don't know if you know anyone who's gone through that type of a situation, but because I do know it's a reality where maybe you see that the role that you have had is not just being declared redundant, possibly in just this one company, but many other companies are also declaring similar positions redundant.
mm,
What
mm,
yeah,
mm.
what does pivoting look like, and what kind of tips would you give?
Wow, yeah. I think I always tell people,
Mm.
keep one eye on the prize and one eye on
Mm,
the game. Yeah, one
nice.
eye, yeah, one eye on the prize, one eye on the game.
Yeah.
And why I say that is because the
Mm,
prize is always the goal that you want to achieve, the kind of
mm,
career goal you set for yourself. But your
yeah.
eye on the game is
Mm,
always changing. The
nice.
landscape
Yeah.
of work is always changing.
Mm,
But
right.
the price remains, isn't it?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
price remains. So, with regards to pivoting, I always
Mm,
tell people, in whatever sector you're in, have your
mm,
ears on the ground.
yeah.
And having your ears on the ground in your sector is
Mm,
always trying to know the trends. So, once
mm,
you know the trends, one, of course, is networking and meeting people in that sector helps a lot.
that's true. Yeah.
Look at trends that are happening
Mm,
globally, definitely
mm,
come regionally and locally.
yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
matter of when.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to keep abreast with articles and trends happening in your space.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Now, for those who have realized, wow, this kind of of roles seem to shift. And maybe I can speak about
Yeah.
HR or talent
Yeah.
because I was in acquisition. I think you're in that, Nicole.
Yeah.
Acquisition is a very interesting space. For example,
Yeah.
it has the largest portfolio of opportunities, but
Yeah.
is also one funny time many times tends to collapse just as fast.
Very quickly. That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
Mm.
because it's tied directly to the scalability and growth of that company
Company.
or
Yeah.
change in strategy. So
Yes.
if you find that growth is beginning to stall, if
Mm.
you realize that the company is beginning to wind down,
Mm.
it's very likely that they
Yeah.
will not be hiring as much.
Yeah.
And so you may know that your role may soon likely not exist.
Very true. Yeah.
So it's
Mm.
always getting to see in your company, am I at the upward, meaning I'm at the height, let me keep going, or is it a
Mhm.
point I'm beginning to
Mhm.
descend?
Yeah.
Then I think it's important for you to begin to now pivot.
Yeah.
So networking helps, keeping your eye on the prize and the game works.
Yeah.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
for trying to pivot,
Mm.
important to have a career mentor because pivoting also depends a
Mm.
lot on timing. If you pivot at the wrong time, it can
Yes.
be your detriment.
Yeah.
Because
Very
we
true.
find that maybe there are some skill sets and experiences you get in
Mm.
that company that
Mm.
will prepare you for the next. Like how you said, I was doing very many roles hiring in Africa
Mm.
locally, but a
Mm.
lot of that hiring, and I remember there were many fast-paced jobs, but
Yeah.
now when you got a job, Nicole, globally, you have
Mm.
picked a lot of grit and stamina for hiring fast-paced roles now across the market. So
Yeah.
I think timing also is important, and to have a
Mm.
career mentor or career
Mm.
coach who is
Mm.
in that space or who helps people navigate their career paths
Yeah.
to ask
Yeah.
them, what are you hearing
Yeah.
about this space? Is this the
Mm.
right time to consider a different path? Is this the
Yeah.
right time to consider other options? So
Mm.
I think speaking with a career coach and career mentor also helps you in timing. It's
Very
a
true.
perspective around the timing. And then, of
Mm.
course, when you think about pivoting and that kind of change, you also
Mm.
have to look at the accumulated skill set you have garnered over the years. Do
Yeah.
not jump ship into a completely different field that will even take you back because
Yeah.
you have to first gain the skills, then
Mm.
get jobs.
Very
So
true.
if you know you're seeing a future in a certain space, begin to
Mm.
do this now. If you
Yeah.
see like a space is going to coding, like for example, if you're a
Mm.
graphic designer,
Mhm.
um, if you're a graphic designer, you
Mhm.
should begin to build skill sets on video and editing because you
Yeah.
find today people want you to have all three. They want you
Yes.
to have graphic design because with the world of AI, people they just draw things, you're done.
Mm.
So
Mm.
who's doing the editing? Because today everyone wants videos, people want live kind of
Mm.
interactions. TikTok is like a massive industry and
Very
it's just
true.
videos.
Yeah.
So people
Literally.
want videos. People don't
Yeah.
want to go to our website, it's static. People are like,
Mm.
where's the YouTube video? Because people want
Very
to
true.
feel the experience. They want to see
Yes.
themselves in that
Yes.
experience because we are now in an age where the customers are experiential. So they
Mm.
want to envision themselves there. And the most powerful thing to do that is the visual, audio visuals do that for you.
Yeah.
So I meet many graphic designers, for example, and they, of course, their schools also, their universities and schools sometimes are not market driven. So they don't
Mm.
also train in that. But if you begin to see
Mm.
or hear, "Oh, yeah, this is what's changing, align.
Mhm.
Another good tip that will help you know when to pivot,
Mhm.
stop typing the title you have and start looking for the job descriptions from other companies. You begin
Yes.
to see certain skill sets that
Mm.
they're looking for, and you realize, hey, do I have that skill set? Hey,
Yeah.
can I do that? And then you
Yeah.
begin to see that change. So, for example, many roles now that are in high demand are acquisition, talent
Yes.
acquisition,
Mm.
learning, development, and
Mm.
are very big on people and culture. There's a lot on culture because I think, of course,
Yeah.
um, people are today are quiet quitting. You know,
Exactly.
yeah, quiet
Yeah,
quitting.
that's true.
Yeah, and there are jokes we say people even quit on LinkedIn. You just find somebody has changed their job. You're like, what? Then you check your email in the morning, the person has resigned. You're like,
As you
goodness.
said, or you're
Yeah,
wondering, why does my colleague or why does my direct report have that open to work thing?
yeah,
And we have
exactly. You're like, huh? I thought you're with us.
it's so
Yeah,
true.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say look at the jobs, see what's changing, look
Mm,
for the skill
mm,
sets and do it. But
yeah.
it's and then if you can move into roles that have some skill set you already have. So I remember even a friend of mine,
Mm,
they're in marketing,
mm-hmm,
and then they struggled to get marketing roles at the level they were in. And
mm,
then they knew someone who was very good in recruitment. And so
mm-hmm,
this person would be like, hey, can you help me recruit? Because, recruiters almost have the marketing side of talent.
yeah.
Because you build an employer brand, you have
Yeah.
targets of hiring, just like
You
sales
have a
targets.
pipeline.
You
Yeah,
have
you have a
network,
pipeline and a
you have
funnel.
a pipeline
Yes.
of funneling just like how marketing
Same.
people work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his skill set in marketing had him
Mm,
had him do recruitment very well. He would look how people
mm,
do what,
that is
and then he
very
realized
good.
people were
Yeah.
still recruiting jobs.
Mm,
And you know what? He just switched and
yeah.
moved to recruitment. And now
Yeah.
he does it very well.
That's
So his
incredible.
skills were just transferable.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a very key thing. Transferable
mhm,
skills are some of the things we talk about at Career Kickstart. So whenever we're going through coaching sessions with some clients, we
yeah,
have them literally list all their skills, any skill that they have. Of course, they will of course list them depending on whether they are very good or like intermediate or expert, and then we try and guide them and see which of these are transferable to
yeah,
another role or to another, whether it's another role, another job, even another industry, because I think even industries have a lot of transferable skills across them. And I think a lot of us, we sort of don't really think about what skills do I have. And I would
yeah.
actually encourage people, just go on a either an Excel sheet or Google sheet essentially, and just write down all your skills. Try and see which, and
Mm,
you see that a lot of them are actually transferable, not just in your current sector, in your current job, but think of maybe the sector or the industry or the roles you want to go to, and that can also support and see what kind of pivoting can I take. So, and we see, and I love that example of the marketing guy moving into recruitment, because people don't realize that a lot of the skills that I have, I can use them elsewhere. We sort of have this mentality that our careers are static. We sit here
mm,
and we go with one pace essentially, but that's not entirely true. You can transfer your skills and see. In fact, for me, pivot people who have done pivots in their careers, those are my type of stories. I find so much eagerness.
mm,
Yeah, how did you pivot from this to this? And
mm,
and you're thriving in it, but really it's sometimes, and yes, there are those skills that they would have to learn, but a lot
yeah.
of times they had the courage to move to this new role or this new industry because of those transferable skills. So I love that you've spoken about that, Waturi. That's really,
Mm,
yeah.
exactly. And I think myself, I've just even realized I pivoted
Mhm.
from psychology because
Oh,
I wasn't, yeah,
really?
just talent HR space. Of course, I had to take the training,
Of course,
but
yes.
really having that foundation with people,
Yeah, yeah,
training around people and behavior really helped
yeah,
me do really, really well
yeah,
in the talent and HR space. So
yeah.
it's very possible. Yeah,
Very
very,
possible.
very possible. Mm.
I'm still waiting for me to see how I will pivot, because what I did what I did in school is what I am sort of practicing. But
Yes, yes.
yeah, but I am looking forward to, at some point, I actually might do the inverse of what you did, because I'm very interested in psychology, would love to make a career out
Oh,
of it at some point. Yeah,
wow.
but pivots are a reality. Pivots are a good thing.
Mm,
If you find yourself in a redundancy or in a layoff situation, you can consider a pivot. Of course, strategically, don't just move from engineering to something
yeah,
to
yeah,
something else.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
there's
Which is
to
why
be
Waturi
calculated
spoke
moves.
about. Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. Which is why you spoke about finding a career mentor, a career coach. Yeah. I can see a comment from Agnes. She's saying, "So timely, thank you. I'm in my second month and taking a day at a time." And I think that's essentially what we are saying. Like, take it a day. Layoffs are not easy. We of course acknowledge that there's a whole process that you would need to go through, but taking it a day at a time and not looking at them as a bad thing, but it could also be a breakthrough, basically getting you into your next adventure. Yeah,
Mm,
it seems that we don't actually have any questions, actually, but I'm very happy that we've covered a lot. Um,
mm.
but essentially, do you have any parting shots, anything we can any parting shots, any word of advice that we can give, maybe someone who's gone through a redundancy or something that is impending, maybe they're seeing it's coming. Yeah, what are some of the last words we could give them?
Wow. I know I've really repeated this, but I'll say it
Mm,
again.
mm.
Um, and this comes from a very random song. They said, "You are not your hair." So I
Ah,
will say, "You are not your job."
thank you.
You are not
Yes,
your job.
you're not your job. Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah,
And I also like
yeah,
that you're not your hair. I like it as well because
yeah. You know the song that says, "Yeah, you're not defined by the standard of how your hair is."
yeah,
You know, whether your hair is bushy,
yeah,
whether it's kinky, whether it's straight, your
straight.
value
Yeah,
and identity in beauty is not defined by
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So you're not your job.
yeah.
Your level of expertise, competence, and
Mm,
intelligence and gifting is not
mm,
tied to that moment in time in that job.
yeah,
Build on craft
yeah,
every day. Don't
yeah.
forget your social capital. Invest heavily in it. We're in a
Yeah.
world where people trust people
Mm,
even more. So please
yes.
invest in your social capital
Yeah.
and really invest in community. Tough times
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah.
So when tough times happen, please don't grieve alone. Find
Mm,
community. People
thank
who will not just say who needs those people in your life, but people
mm,
who tell you, you know what, it's
yeah.
tough. We are together. How do we
Yeah.
move? So
Yeah.
I would just share those as parting shots. I don't know if you have
Yes.
anything on your end
Yeah.
to add,
I,
Nicole.
I love that, you're not your job, because I really get it. The tying your identity to your job is such a thing. I
Mm,
completely get it because I know I went through the same process. Yeah, so I think my parting shots would be, I think layoffs, redundancies are, as we mentioned, almost becoming a new normal. It is my hope that most people don't go through it, but if you do go through it, understand that there's so much more light at the end of a
mm,
layoff. There's
mm,
so much. I think even your mental capacity, you become a stronger individual once you go through it. But there are some things that can essentially help you to go through it, essentially. So, as Waturi mentioned, invest in your social capital. Don't grieve alone. Let people in your life know. It doesn't have to be shouting from the
mm,
roof, but let people in your life know. Invest in your network, even before, if you start seeing it's an impending layoff, start investing in your network. Start understanding what even your transferable skills would look like to be able to get into something different if you're looking to pivot. And even when you are especially going through interviews, sometimes we have gaps, like maybe you went through a layoff, maybe, and you were affected for like 6 months, you didn't get a job, maybe a year. You can speak about it honestly and openly, even with interviewers, with hiring managers, with recruiters, because again, some of the things that we also understand as recruiters is, the situation on the ground of how people go through layoffs, and that's a thing
yep,
essentially. So
yep.
don't be scared to talk about it, and you can even leverage that time to speak about what add-ons you have. Maybe when you went through a layoff, 6 months, those 6 months you took up a course, those six
Mm,
months you took up a new skill. I know people who, and for me, skills are everything. Yeah, you
mm,
might not have worked, but you picked up a new skill. You picked up, whether it was a course, an online course, or you volunteered somewhere. There's always something that you can do. But I guarantee you, if you can take my word and Waturi's word for it, the things that come after a layoff end up being incredibly so much better. You
mm,
just need to have a little bit of faith, a little bit of hope. Of course, keep investing in yourself. Don't just in Kiswahili jiachilia, keep investing in yourself. Of course, take some time to grieve, but don't make sure that you're springing back up, essentially. Yeah, so
mm,
those would be my final remarks. Yeah, and I think that's it. We are actually at the top of the hour, past 3 minutes. But thank you so much, Achuri, for your time. Really, I truly, myself and the Career Kickstart team, we really appreciate the fact that you actually accepted for us to do this. We definitely will do it again.
mm.
We'll try and see if there are any other, I think if any other questions that come up, I can share them with you. We can see if we can help a few more people. And yeah, something to also our audience, our listeners, we actually are crafting a sort of package for anyone who would be going through a layoff or redundancy. So if you need that type of support, please be on the lookout for that. We basically will be offering maybe career coaching services, helping you redo your CV, just because we understand what this process looks like, and would really want to help you get to the next stage of your career. Yeah, but for that, thank you so much for your time, everybody who's joined. I wish you all a good night. Tomorrow is Friday, so a happy weekend in advance. Thank you, Waturi.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and have a good weekend, everybody, and all the best.
Thank you, everybody. God bless. Bye.